welcome into episode 4 of the Oil and Gas Young Professionals podcast. Okay, so this show is directed to the oil and gas young professional, that's the show, and the future of oil and gas is technology. So what I'm going to try and do is add some direction to the show, and you can find me and the OGYP posted up on the corner of oil and gas, the energy industry, and technology, the intersection, posted up on the corner. Okay, for this show, our guest is going to be Jennifer Perez. Jennifer is a sales representative at MI Swaco, which is a subsidiary company of Schlumberger. Jennifer is going to give us her story, tell us what it's like to sell in the upstream services sector in 2016, and at the end, I quiz her in a lightning round about MI Swaco's new products and services. All right, Jennifer Perez, welcome into the Oil and Gas Young Professionals podcast. Thanks for coming by today.
Thank you for having me, James. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so this is kind of becoming the go-to question to start off the show here. But Jennifer, how did you get into oil and gas?
I got into oil and gas. Long story short, I had an internship and then got hired full-time. Long story is that I interviewed with Schlumberger the semester before I graduated, and
when was that? What semester? So people can kind of get a reference for when you graduated.
Fall 2014.
Fall 2014. And what else, happened in fall of 2014? That would be the OPEC meeting where they decided not to cut production, and thus begun the downward spiral of the WTI and the world crude oil prices. What was it like graduating from school when that was happening? Because that was also I was in the same boat as well.
It was really nerve-wracking. Actually, I reached out to the recruiters and the partners with the sales program that I graduated from, and how I found Schlumberger. I reached out to them and I was like, hey, do I still have an internship? Like, with prices going low, I was worried about it, if they were going to rescind the offer or anything, but they did it, and I was really happy about that for sure. The internship started in June of 2015 and ended in August, and it was the hardest few months of my entire life.
What was the internship? What were you doing?
I was calculating market share for NAL and
NAL?
North America Land.
Okay.
Yeah, there are tons of acronyms. Sorry. And I remember starting and hearing all of these and being like, why do people say those? Like, they should just say the entire word because it's easier. But now I've caught on. I've drank the Kool-Aid. I say acronyms all the time.
Yeah, exactly. We love the oil and gas acronym. Yeah. We love those.
There should be a book. That's what I'm going to do on the weekends now, is write a book of acronyms.
Okay, and you mentioned this internship was hard, and obviously
yes.
It was sort of rough to get thrown in at that point when, you sort of just felt lucky to have a job, but there was a lot of people, and people were trying to figure out what was going on with the low oil prices, and maybe they were, I don't know, there's just a lot of uncertainties around that time. So what was it like? And you said it was a difficult internship, so you can obviously sympathize there.
It was difficult not only because of the industry and the environment. It was difficult just because of the task given, because it was one of those sink or swim situations where they literally were like, okay, figure out how to do this. We're not really going to give you much direction. We just want to see what you produce at the end of the summer. And yeah, there were tons of uncertainties because as the months progressed, from June even to August, rig count fell dramatically, and having to work that into market share in my presentation was really difficult. I remember towards the end getting asked, oh, why are we losing this market share? And some of it is rig count, some of it is some other opportunities that I pointed out and are being worked on. So it was grueling just because it was really hard. I didn't know where to turn for all this information, and everything was in Excel spreadsheets. Everything was in, people just had information, their own little, market share for their area. And so it was a lot of meeting and hounding people for information. So yeah, that was the hard part. And of course, analyzing all of that data and trying to make sense of it and finding like missed opportunities on MI Swaco's part. So
Was there a guaranteed job offer at the end of the internship?
no.
So was there any sort of things that you did to go above and beyond to try and keep your name in their mind and let them know that you're someone that they should hire?
Yeah, absolutely. I made sure to have FaceTime with as many people as possible in the office. Like, I made sure everyone knew my name and asked everyone for help. Like, there was no one and no like door I didn't knock on for information. And so I think that really helped. And then of course, like staying late, going in on the weekends just to finish the work because it was so much. So I think what really helped was just my work ethic and just meeting people and going from there.
Yeah, it's all about attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of got thrown into a difficult situation and you made the best of it, and then you went above and beyond. And like you said, reach out to everyone, make sure they know your name, maybe bring them some coffee, go and ask them for answers, ask them how they made their personal spreadsheets so good and how you can learn how to do so.
Exactly.
Okay, and then at the end, you said there was no guaranteed job offer, but you did land a job offer while Schlumberger was unfortunately reducing their headcount by thousands of people worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen?
It happened because I expressed interest in pursuing sales, and they knew they needed salespeople, and so I think because I made my like desire known with the company from the start, I think that also really helped and it was just timing, honestly, because they had open positions in sales and I wanted to pursue that. I think that also really helped me get a full-time job.
So you did it, you landed the job. That's what every college graduate dreams of, getting a job in oil and gas. At least the ones that are listening to the show, they want to get a job, maybe not in oil and gas, but just a job in general.
Yeah,
After
absolutely.
you did that, you landed as a sales position in Houston?
Correct.
And then, so you show up and you sort of got an introduction to the company and what it was like and a little bit of the culture, but that was from the internship standpoint. Now you're signed on full-time.
Correct.
What was it like getting started at such a big organization and trying to find your bearings and sort of just, again, you had to start over and get your feet under you?
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of was daunting just because everything that I had been doing already for the company was very in-house, and then getting tasked with client-facing roles is actually, it's pretty intimidating. And so
client-facing, is that like code of conduct or best practices for the sales team? Or what is that?
So client-facing is it basically just means that you're in front of clients.
Okay.
Like you yourself like see clients and you're in front of them.
Getting those reps in front of them. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think what really helped was the training that they provided. They made sure to give me a lot of technical like information and things to study, classes I took, which definitely helped because I had no idea. I don't have a technical background. And so to kind of come into that is definitely intimidating, but I think it's something that you can definitely get a handle of if you're really dedicated and you have a desire to learn.
Oh,
and
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and then I also pushed for field experience because I feel like that's what you need.
Does that mean going out to the rig and actually seeing the job firsthand?
Yeah, and doing the job, actually. I mean, I didn't take over the mud engineers. I wasn't their relief or anything. I was a shadow, but what ended up happening was they were like, oh, okay, you went to mud school, which is one of the classes I attended. And they were like, okay, since you went to mud school, you can go grab the sample and you can run the test and then let me know how it goes. And so I was like, okay. So it was a lot of hands-on and really interesting to see.
What was going through your mind the first time you went out there on the rig? Well, what was some of the cool things that you saw? What shocked you? What maybe wasn't quite as you expected?
I expected it to be very dirty and grimy and to be surrounded by people who were like mean or
and dirty and grimy.
Yeah, exactly. And then I found the exact opposite of that. Everyone was so kind. No one was ever like, oh, you're a female or you're a youngin, like you don't deserve to be here or anything. They were so welcoming. Like no one ever like didn't want to answer my questions or anything. I never expected it to be so loud though. Like you just never think about that. Well, at least I never did. And yeah, you had to wear like soundproof like equipment to be around certain areas of the rig, which is crazy to think about. And just the scale of everything. Like you see pictures, you read about it, but then you see it in person and you're like, wow, it's like this is real, like this is huge, and it's part of like this huge like it just really kind of makes you like puts you in perspective.
Yeah, that you're on the job site of one rig, and there's fewer rigs all the time, but you're working on one at a time, and just the sheer amount of work that it takes and all the moving parts for one rig is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's so cool to see how everything works, and
you got to bounce around a couple of them and check them out.
Yeah. The one thing that I wasn't too happy about was the food, because still something I'm learning to do for myself is cook. So the first time I went out to a rig, I like didn't know what to buy for myself, and I ended up just buying like Pop-Tarts and like cereal, and that's what I ate. And so the next time I went out, I like prepared. So
the sugar rush eventually wore off, and then
I needed to sleep eventually. So
yeah, there you go. Okay, and then around the office, was there above and beyond your specific job? Could you kind of feel the uneasiness and the tension in the workplace? Did some people maybe resent you because you'd come in and just gotten this job, and their coworker or their friend had just gotten laid off? Was there anything like that, like kind of workplace difficulties?
Not that I've seen firsthand. I mean, if they're saying something behind my back, that's something different, but not to my face and not anything that I feel. Everyone is super kind and supportive, and if I ever have any questions, like there's not a shortage of people that I can go to. And of course it's difficult to see your friends getting laid off, and for some people like family members too. So there's a little bit of survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt, is that a common term, or did you just coin that?
No, it's a real term.
People talk about that. Survivor's guilt. Yeah,
it basically is an HR term for the people who get to keep their job after like layoffs or anything like that. And so it's rough, and I'm not like trying to say like, oh, I have so much survivor's guilt, like woe is me or anything, like nothing like that. But it's rough to see friends and family, but I've seen like really talented people, and I know they're gonna find something that's right for them going like forward. So
okay, so working at Schlumberger is a really big company. Are there any sort of cool, you're kind of working in your own little mini subculture of Houston, are there any cool internal Schlumberger things, maybe some sort of workplace practices that go on, or just something that if I don't work at Schlumberger, I don't know about, but this is kind of something it's part of your daily week or your month or part of your daily whatever inside the company?
I would have to say all the like different like team building events. So like tomorrow actually, or sorry, no, a couple of days from now, we're going out to a lodge that MI Swaco has in Port O'Connor, and it's just like the team is going to hang out there and just like kind of see each other outside of work, which doesn't always get to happen with everyone's schedule. And so I think it's so nice, and I think it'll be fun. MI Swaco, it turns out, has like not tons, but like different little like apartments or lodges that I hope to stay in one day.
To clarify, the people who own and the company that owns these lodges that you hope to one day stay in, you mentioned MI Swaco. Can you clarify for all the listeners what that is and what that means?
Sure. MI Swaco is a segment of Schlumberger. They bought MI Swaco in 2011 and are working towards integration, and it's coming along pretty well. one challenge of buying companies and being such a big entity is like systems. So every company has their own way of doing things, and so I think Schlumberger is moving towards. We already have one system that kind of is worldwide that everyone uses, which I think is a really good idea. And what's going to happen in the next, few months, few years is that they're going to integrate different functions into it. So right now it's mainly sales. Like what I get to see is sales. So we're going to have like finance in there, and we're going to have like be able to run all these like crazy cool reports and things like that. So that's kind of exciting that they have that CRM and they're going to expand it. And yeah, because Schlumberger has bought several companies, we're all just called segments. So.
Okay. So this is something that I have experienced by just speaking with people, and a lot of people our age, we're both under 25 even. When you go to work, all these people that you talk to, what does the age breakdown of those people look like? Are they all millennials and postgrads, or are they all pushing retirement?
It depends on what function you look at. For MI's sales team, I'm the only sales rep in my 20s. So everyone else is like in their 60s.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an older like demographic, like my coworkers and everything. In different areas, like some of the like labs or out in the field, you have younger people, but in the office, it's generally like more senior people.
And that's something I can relate to, and a lot of people I think our age across the industry can relate to. You might be young, but it's sort of strange because you're doing the same jobs and working with these people, but they're all much older than you, so you have to kind of make water cooler chat. And what are you going to talk about over coffee or lunch or
grandchildren?
Yeah, grandchildren. Like, oh, little Tommy is playing soccer this weekend. How'd that go? Well, really, you don't know much about Tommy unless maybe your brother or sister has some sort of children, because we're just out of school, so we're trying to relate and figure these people out. So you are in sales.
Correct.
At MI Swaco, which is a segment of Schlumberger.
Correct.
Schlumberger is the largest upstream oil and gas service company, right?
Correct.
So what's it like selling in upstream oil and gas services in 2016? Is that hard? Is that easy? It's easy street?
I wish it was easy. I think I'd be able to sleep better at night. No, just kidding. It's definitely difficult. It's not anything that I would say like you just show up to work and it just happens. Like things aren't like given to you or fall into your lap. At least for me. So I think it's like a daily grind. But it's also really fun because you interact with a whole bunch of different people, and that's what I personally like to do. Is I'm pretty social, so I like to be around people, and so I think sales at MI Swaco really helps me with that.
What's the craziest thing you've done to get someone at a meeting or on a phone call or email? How do you guess email addresses and try to get people to hit you up? Like, are there any sort of crazy things? Because I'm not in sales. I don't know what that's like, but I think it's interesting. You're trying to sell as much as you can, and there's less money to go around right now. Well, what does that look like?
For some companies, you can guess email addresses because it'll just be first and last names. So you'll be like, oh, okay, like I know this person is in the drilling group, so I need to talk to them. So you just email them and hope they respond. For me personally, just because I'm new to the industry, it's about networking and establishing relationships. So a lot of what I do is go out there and try to meet people organically, and then it also involves like cold calling and like cold emailing, which is never fun. Like it's not anything that you wake up and like necessarily like are super excited about. Like it's not anything someone dreams about doing when they're little, like growing up and cold calling.
Do you have a system down at this point? You got it down to a science? What's your cold calling workflow? How does that happen?
So I don't like to cold call in front of other people. I get too nervous about it. So I'm definitely like in my own little area. And yeah, I like know what questions to ask to kind of like get the conversation going. And get some information that I need. And what I always try to do is set up in-person meetings. I don't really like dealing with just over the phone conversations. I believe like the way to go is definitely meeting people in person. And so some people are more receptive to that than others. But I think, yeah, it's just, I don't have a script or anything.
Yeah, no script.
No script. At other companies I've had scripts.
And you mentioned going out and meeting and networking people,
Mm-hmm.
which is how we sort of met, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How did we come to know each other?
So we met at an API networking happy hour.
And why were you at an API networking happy hour? This kind of relates to you trying to find your feet in the industry, right?
Yeah. Just because working around older people, you need to like find other young people in the oil and gas industry. They exist. And
hopefully they listen to this show.
Yeah, exactly. We're here. YPs are here. So that's why I wanted to get more involved with oil field organizations, just to meet people closer to my age. And I am part of the program for excellence in selling at the University of Houston. And a lot of the graduates from there come to Schlumberger. And a former Schlumberger employee and PES alum is a co-founder. And so I was like, that's perfect. I definitely need to be where he is.
Shout out to Joel Powell right there.
Yeah, exactly.
We love you, Joel.
So that's how we met. When we started talking.
All right. And then offline, you and I discussed what you can and can't talk about. Which you can't talk about, it would be projects that are confidential and things that are internally going on at Schlumberger. But you also mentioned, and we briefly discussed, sort of some cool technologies y'all are rolling out at the company. What can you talk about maybe a couple of those one at a time, and I can ask you questions because this will be the first time I'm hearing about them. What's up with those?
So our first is called a screen pulse, and it is a vacuum that you put under the last screen on a shaker. And so what it does is it literally pulses and sucks more fluid off of the shaker screen.
What's a shaker?
A shaker is a solids control equipment. It's usually the first line. Directly from mud coming out of the hole or any type of fluid. Comes over the shaker first, and it literally just is a giant machine that vibrates and flows liquid over different screens. And the idea is that all the solids will stay on top of the screen and fall into a catching tank, and the liquid will fall through the screens, and you'll be able to reuse that liquid as you keep drilling. Okay,
so real quick question. This just came to my mind as we were talking here.
Mm-hmm.
How many of these technologies do you have in your mind that you want to talk about right now?
3.
3, okay. Let's borrow some things from Shark Tank or the pitch world. Give me your elevator pitches for the next 3 things, starting with the first one. Let's go. I'm an investor. Well, pitch me on these products, or I'm an operator trying to buy these.
The pressure. So Screen Pulse is gonna. Well, okay. Let's back up, because I don't want to reduce these technologies to just elevator speeches, because really they're customized. So really, it really just depends on what you need. So first I would have to ask you some questions like if you're drilling with water-based or a brine.
We're water-based.
Okay. So then you'd have no benefit from using our screen pulse.
Okay. All right. On to the next one. What's up with the next one?
So the next one would be our reuse system. And what it does is it mechanically and chemically reduces low gravity solids to whatever level you want, actually. They can get it down to like 0.02, but of course, like that, you can't use that type of fluid to drill. Like you need some solids for filter cakes and things like that.
And would there be some specific drilling applications or specific types of geology that you're using this with, or what's the use here? What's the application?
It's just to make sure your mud stays clean and you keep any additives you want in it. And we can use it during active drilling. And then also what we've found is that it's really good for when you're done with your mud. So when you're done drilling and you either have to store it or the company buys it back, like we can clean it up for you. And so that's reuse. And then the next system is...
Okay, so what is the next technology that you want to talk about?
It is our PFMS system, which is...
More acronyms.
Yeah, exactly. Pressure Fluid Management System. And it's used for hole cleanouts and coil tubing operations. A lot of times people and companies don't use closed loop systems whenever they go back into the hole. And they end up using tons and tons of water because they literally there's no way to recapture any of it. So all they have to do is use more water. And so what it does is it's a closed loop system, so you can reuse the fluid. And like some benefits are reduced water cost and less frac tanks that you have to have on site.
Can you speak about which ones you've had the most success of these three selling? Which one do you like the most? Which one's easiest to sell, maybe?
I think the technology that I like the most is probably the screen pulse, just because I see so many benefits for it. Like it literally saves you so much money on fluid costs. And so, I mean, mud is super expensive, and so why not try to find ways to like cut costs in that way? So, and it doesn't like affect the shaker screens or anything like that. Like the vacuum isn't that powerful.
So it's called Screen Pulse?
Screen Pulse, correct.
Screen Pulse. So good it sells itself.
I hope so.
Okay, and then for everyone listening here on the show, if they like you or if they interested in hearing more about Screen Pulse or MI Swaco, or they just want to connect with you on a personal level and get some drinks or coffee, how would you have them reach out to you?
My phone number, which is the best way to reach me.
Oh, live phone number shout out. This is going to be Jennifer doing her best Mike Jones impersonation here. Jennifer was going to give out her number on the show, Mike Jones style, but she decided against it. So this is me talking over it right now. Don't get too many ideas, guys. She's already taken.
And then another way to reach me would be through email, which is the second best way.
Okay, and we'll put that in the show notes just in case.
Okay. And it's jperez183@slb.com.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jennifer.
Hey, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate talking about myself. So,
all of Jennifer's friends and family out there, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your time. And to everyone else, thank you so much for tuning into the Oil and Gas Young Professionals podcast. And I look forward to speaking to you next time.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye, guys. Okay, so at the beginning of the show, we talked about how we're going to post the show up on the corner of oil and gas and the greater energy industry and also technology. So what we're going to do is add, for now, this is a working segment, a technology segment here. So what I'm going to do right now is talk about our topic for this week, which is the Internet of Things. You may have heard of the digital oil field, which is actually the oil and gas specific segment of something that many think will be larger and more impactful than the internet as we know it. This is called the Internet of Things, IoT. Wiki defines the Internet of Things as a network of physical objects, devices, vehicles, buildings, and other items embedded with electronics, software, sensors, and network connectivity that enables these objects to collect and exchange data. Okay, so that's the basic steps for to make an object or make something and connect it to the IoT would be to give it a specific ID number, put a sensor on the object, and connect it to the internet. All of these things we've heard about the cloud, and all of these things are connected in the cloud, and they all can work together to drive efficiencies and just really use technology to improve the world as we know it. One basic example what I'm trying to explain what IoT is to people is smart trash cans. So everybody knows when they grew up they had chores that they had to take out the trash every day because the trash men collect at certain times. But with the Internet of Things, they put sensors in trash cans, and then that means that trash cans can actually send little signals back to people that pick up the trash and know exactly when to pick it up so they don't have to come out every week or every day. Another example of this, people know about smart lights and smart heating, and such as the Nest thermostat. So you can create intelligent, efficient heating for your home so that you can save money in your electric bill, and it only heats your house when you need to. Another really cool application of this is for medical use, and people that are at high risk for heart attacks and heart disease in general, they can wear sensors, and these sensors can detect, based on your heart rate and other key indicators, early signs of heart attacks and strokes. And then because these sensors are connected to the internet, that will alert your doctor, and a doctor can then have his system approve it, and that will send an ambulance automatically to whoever the sick person is. And then you can get the care you need before you need it. So that's kind of preventative maintenance on your body. And that can really be really powerful for helping people stay healthy. In oil and gas applications, so this would be digital oil field, would be the new land shale drilling rigs. They can sense when they're finished drilling one hole, and they have legs on them. And because everything's connected, it will know that it needs to get up, use legs, walk to where the next hole is, and then start drilling again at the next hole. And just to give you an idea of the scale of how impactful this can be, the Cisco CEO, John Chambers, called the Internet of Things a $19 trillion industry. One last thing, because everyone talks about Google and how Google is a big part of our life. Let's just Google it. Right now, I'm going to Google Internet of Things and see how many results pop up here. Okay, so that resulted in 245 million results in half a second. So feel free to Google Internet of Things and you can tell me how many pop up. But that's going to be it for this segment. I'm going to post a lot of cool notes in there if you'd like to learn more about this, or you can reach out to me. Okay, so moving on to the more typical end of the show, we're going to talk about reviews. We got 6, which means we got 2 reviews, which means we now have 6. So the first one is going to be from Superman234. It says, great conversations and valuable insights. Great new show focused for oil and gas young professionals. I enjoyed listening to different experts share their know and insight in specific areas of expertise. Listen to this episode with Mark LaCour. Great advice for young professionals. And the 6th one is going to be Matthew O'Leary. Both of these are 5-star reviews. The Oil and Gas Young Professionals podcast provides those burning questions that you've wanted to know in an accessible format. The host, James Gordy, hits the nail on the head for millennials wondering how to break into the industry. As a current first-year graduate student, this cast has helped me network and put my foot in doors that would have otherwise closed on others. Check in on Wednesdays for new releases. Okay, so reviews, like we've said, are the most important thing to help the show. What that does is help push the show to the top of the iTunes rankings, and this helps more people find the show in turn. If you'd like to leave a review, and I'd really appreciate it if you could do so, it's the number one way to help me out. You can go to jamesgordy.com/review. Also, in addition to iTunes, you can find the show on Stitcher, because we're now approved on Stitcher Radio Store, and on SoundCloud. And then I want to say, guys, hit me up. I really like interacting with people and getting your feedback, and just getting to hear and find out who's listening to the show. And I take people's ideas and I submit them and use them to make improvements. You can find all my contact information and all the rest of the show notes at jamesgordy.com/OGYP3. No zero this time, just OGYP3. And the show comes out every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time, just like you're listening to it now. Appreciate your time. Give me some feedback. I love hearing from you. And I'll speak to you next week. Bye now. Okay, that's going to be a cut. No problem.
My gosh.
That was tough. Sorry. I thought that would be cool.
Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on it? I literally have to talk about it all the time. Let me look at my emails.